very excited for his own health. Sam Crosby has been told to go upstairs, and I appreciate it. This way, nothing catches, but geez, that beard's looking good, mate. That beard's looking fantastic. Matt Canavan, he's got a beard ready for after the election, regardless of what the result is. Lovely to see you both. All right, Sam, I'm going to start with you, and about my take on what we should be paying a little bit more attention to in the polls. Is Labor's vote down? Bloody oath. Way down? Absolutely. Enough for it to get smashed in an election? You betcha. However, Coalition ever so slightly up, not as close to, they're closer to a 40 than not. They're in a better position than they were at the last election, blah, 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 blah. But what about that independent factor? Because I don't know what independent means in Queensland. I know that in certain places it means Teals, in other places it means Daly. Do you see this, and from the Labor perspective, is this the silver lining in the polls, that they haven't fully crossed the road yet?
Oh, look, Paul, I don't know if there's many silver linings in those polls that came out today. Look, you are a big believer in the detail of these polls. I tend to think that they more sort of give you a vibe and a general impression of what people are thinking, and it's not really worth delving 3 or 4 lines deep in the data. And, look, to be fair, I'll get in before Matt can make the point. I think it's telling the government that people are pretty pissed off and they want to see them do more and do better to address the cost of living crisis that I think we all are experiencing. And I think they're sending that message loud and clear. I think they're also saying they're not entirely happy with the opposition. They don't want to reward Peter Dutton with their vote just yet. And they're unsure. So, yeah, that might be one of the reasons that they're pumping up the tyres of the independents and the minor parties. But I think it's a sobering message for the government.
Well said, my friend. I know how hard that is and what you cop for saying it, but I appreciate you saying it and you're calling it straight, and that's why we love you. Matt, again, right, I mean, we've talked before. Is this one of those moments where I'm wobbling around, I've gone into the reeds, I've, gone so far off track that I'm looking into the minutiae when the reality is there is a North Star and all you can do is keep walking towards the North Star?
No, I think you're pretty spot on here, Paul. I think people are up for grabs. They're clearly disappointed with the current government. They're clearly underwhelmed with what they see as an inadequate response, I think, to the very significant challenges. I mean, there's no doubt it's a very hard time for governments to be in charge. Lots of things happening all around the world, the challenging recovery from COVID. But the simple fact is this government hasn't come up to the mark of those challenges. It can whinge and whine all it likes, but that comes with a pay grade. It comes with being in government. You are tested on whether you can respond to such challenges, and clearly this government has been found wanting many times on that. So people are up for grabs, and I keep saying, I've said this in this program before, we've got to be up to the test then of showing people that we've got an alternative. My view is to knock off a first-term government. You have to have a very clear set of differences from the current government, because if you're just a small target, if you're too much of the same, people are probably going to default back to thinking, well, maybe the better the devil I know. So look, that's a challenge for us. I've got lots of ideas how we could make those differences. I'm just a mere backbencher though, Paul. And, there's smarter people than me around, but that's a challenge for us. It's up for grabs. People are up for grabs. We can definitely win this thing, and I don't think we should die wanting.
Well, also, again, one without notice here though, Matt, which is that when I tell you the reporting of the Australian newspaper that after the firebombing of the synagogue, rather than the Prime Minister getting on his personal plane, didn't have to wait for one that was coming out of the airport at, in 2 hours, could get on his personal plane, flown straight to Melbourne, but of course didn't. Instead, the next day, after going to the fundraiser, that's when he calls the tennis club, that's when he, having a jolly old time, he'll get round to the national security of everything. This on top of a whole collection of everything from Upgrade Albo to the house to the cost of living stuff, the voice. The bloke is absolutely at the other end of where people are. It's pretty simple. Regardless of whether it was any sort of place of worship, when it's been set on fire, if you've got the chance to be there, get off your ass and go there as soon as possible.
Look, it's a pretty simple one, isn't it, Paul? You've outlined it well. And I think the most important thing you've said there is it's not the first rodeo for the Prime Minister. We saw the same situation with Alice Springs, law and order crisis, where he decided to have, I think, 3 nights at the tennis, still lots of nights at the tennis, not spend the night in Alice Springs. Now he's playing tennis instead of showing leadership on a shocking event that's rocked our nation. Look, this event alone is unlikely to win or lose the election, but as I say, you just seem to have a Prime Minister that misses so many opportunities to show leadership for the country to build unity among us all at times of this. So, look, I think a lot of Labor people are scratching their heads about that, wondering whether the Prime Minister is a bit absent-minded at the moment. As it comes back to me, though, to say, look, I could whinge all night about Anthony Albanese, but we've just got to make sure we get ourselves in order, because I think the Australian people deserve a proper choice. I do think we need a change of government, and I want to not leave anything out in the field in the pursuit of delivering that change.
Yeah, I mean, Sam, I'm going to, again, and maybe it's just whatever the heck is going on inside me right now, but there is just again a little moment of caution here, right? That I remember how hardcore, myself included, he doesn't remember what the unemployment rate is, all of this, and then ultimately, of course, irrelevant to the final outcome. The belief was that those who talk about news all day, every day, were completely somewhere else than where the people were, which was they'd already made their decision and it didn't matter what happened. And again, there is no verbal trap at the end of this question, which results in me pointing and using terms. But what do you think about the series of choices? I mean, is the Prime Minister right to say, look, I've dealt with this, the AFP are up and running, I have done everything that's been asked of me, perhaps not the exact words at the exact time, but I've got there? Or is there just the inevitable bad look of things that's really hard to deal with?
Oh, look, I think you can analyse these things, till the cows come home. It generally all conflates and contributes to a general feeling. But I think over the next couple of months, you're going to see the contrast between the two leaders be brought into stark relief. Both parties are going to be saying, on the one hand, this is either a choice between, from the Conservative side, has the government done a good job and deserve to be re-elected, or from the government side, who do you want, Peter Dutton or Anthony Albanese? I also have to say, Matt just made me think then in one of his earlier answers, I think this is also a team question. I think this is a question about who's on the front bench and measure them up, go down the list. And I have to say, I mean, who am I to give the opposition any advice? But why isn't Matt on the front bench?
Yes.
I think,
By
and
choice.
Matt, feel free not to respond to this.
By choice, he said.
You possibly don't want me saying this, but Matt is one of the more effective commentators, more effective communicators, rather, in the government. And I look down the list of people on the shadow benches, and frankly, with the exception of a couple, they're nowhere. They're nowhere compared to the government. So I do sort of think the opposition has to get its own house in order before they start measuring up the curtains in the lodge.